Hello, everyone. We hope you're having a great day so far. I know it's a little late in the day, but we're super excited. I'm Mukta, and we're starting off our presentation called Design Your Path, Creating Credentials of the Future. We're all currently students at ASU, and we're super excited to present to you today. I'm going to list out some norms, but while I'm doing that, can you guys go ahead and put your name, position, organization, and because this is camp themed to make it a little fun, your favorite s'mores topping or ingredient in the chat below. And just to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to contribute in the meeting, we just ask that you stay muted until we ask for your input. But we would love for ongoing conversation in the chat. We'll be checking that too, and feel free to talk to each other in the chat as well. And then to increase productivity and effectiveness, go ahead and save your questions until the discussion. We have various discussion portions throughout the presentation, as well as opportunities in breakout rooms to discuss. And at the end, if you have any questions as well, there will be opportunities for additional information. And then to facilitate the achievement of all of our goals and to be able to discuss, please go ahead and feel free to engage in discussion however you feel comfortable. I know this is a little weird over Zoom, so whether that be through chat or unmuting yourself, however you feel comfortable, we would love to facilitate an engaging discussion today. And we're super excited to get started.
Alrighty, so we're going to go over our objectives and the agenda. So today our objectives are going to be to learn about and discuss the answers to the following questions. What are alternative credentials? What are the programmatic options? And what is the future of a degree or a credential? And we're going to start off by introducing our team. We're going to talk about what our topic is. We're going to do some interactive breakout rooms. We're going to have some reflections, and then we're going to conclude and go about the rest of the conference.
Hello, my name is Faith. I am a rising senior at ASU, and I am currently double majoring in business, public policy, and public service, as well as education studies. Could not be more excited to embark on this journey with you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pooja. I am a senior majoring in technology, entrepreneurship, and management with a minor in statistics and a certificate in cross-sector leadership.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mukta. I'm an incoming junior majoring in CIS and supply chain management with a minor in communication, and I'm super excited. I recently got introduced to this topic, and I'm super passionate about it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine. I'm an incoming sophomore majoring in mechanical engineering with focus in energy and environmental studies.
And my name is Bailey. I am an incoming sophomore at ASU, studying elementary education and pursuing a degree or a certificate in cross-sector leadership. And I'm so excited to hear about all of your opinions on alternative credentialing today.
Alrighty, so to kind of kick off the challenge or the problem that we're trying to tackle, we're going to go ahead and share some of our Campfire connections or some personal stories and relations that we have to the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and share a personal example about my dad, who grew up and went to school in India, and he moved here in the late 90s in about 96, and with a high school degree. And so after he graduated from high school, he was able to get several years, I think 7 to 8, of complex work experience with hardware and circuits, and had a really, really strong skill set. But he had, as I mentioned, he only graduated with a high school degree. So once he moved here, it was very, very difficult for him to get a competitive job with no undergrad or bachelor's degree. As a result of this, he was employed for 7 years until he was able to find a low-level job that would allow him to kind of work while pursuing his bachelor's degree on the side, since it is very expensive. And this presented not only a financial burden, but also kind of barred him from being able to pursue his dream job and passion early on. I don't think that when he moved here, he kind of envisioned himself not working for 8 years and having that gap. So if he had any other option that would have allowed him to get a credential early on, or just start working and do what he wanted to do earlier on, that would have been a better way for him to pursue his passion.
So I'm also going to share a personal connection, but mine actually goes back to slightly more recently. I attended a very academically rigorous high school that connected with a lot of local colleges, as well as had a rigorous AP program that allowed students to receive numerous college credits throughout their experience. And many of us chose to pursue a traditional route of heading straight from high school into college. But one of my close friends actually opted to do something a little bit different. She decided that she wanted to really explore art and social media and what that looked like, because that was where her strengths kind of lay. And she also wanted to travel a lot, which is something many young people desire to do. And so you take that gap year. But for her, that gap year turned into 2 gap years. And by the time she was looking to go to college, she just couldn't make that financial commitment anymore. And the length of time that she'd been out of school just wasn't really working. And so she ended up taking several smaller jobs. And so for now, she's been faced with a back-to-back series of dead-end jobs where she couldn't really accelerate her career or anything. And for her, the idea of going back to school is something that's very daunting, even though she has credits, because she's not sure how those credits would apply, how the experience that she's gained being in the workforce recently would apply. And so she's unsure about her next steps as she moves forward with where her career is going to go.
So when we think about cases like Faith's friend or my dad, who did eventually end up getting his degree, but it was several years after he had originally planned and he had to save up for it, we can take a look at some of the current options that exist for any individuals in this position or anyone considering college in general. So currently we have some options at ASU which are also offered at institutions nationwide. The most basic option that you can think of right off the bat is just getting a bachelor's degree, signing up for a major, just like all of us are currently at ASU. You can do that either online or in person, and then tack on minors or certificates, which again, it's worth mentioning that they're only available if you are already enrolled in a university and pursuing a bachelor's degree. You can't just enroll in and do simply 1 or 2 certificates. And then again, with that, not all schools or colleges offer minors and certificates. I'm sure with all of us, the application process for colleges really revolved around not only financials, but also what school offers what I wanted to do. I know I picked ASU only because they have a CIS program, and not all schools offer minors and certificates in what an individual might be interested in. Additionally, there are some other options that exist. It's called Continuing in Professional Education at ASU, but another name for it is also Extension at other universities, if that's something that you're familiar with. So it's essentially a program targeted more towards reskilling workers, so it's not really something that you can take a bunch of certificates that stack on top of each other. So it's not stackable, it doesn't accumulate towards a degree, it's more of a cherry on top add-on, and it's usually considered the non-credit arm of the university. And again, it's not offered in many fields. I know the CPE program at ASU is only offered in about 4 to 5, and while it is growing, as I mentioned, it's very important to note these programs aren't stackable. So for people like Faith or my father who needed an option that was financially more flexible, it doesn't really seem like a good fit.
Well, let's take a little break here. So we heard about Mukta's father's story, who is an immigrant, a middle-aged man who had tons of work experience and technical skills, but struggled to find a job here because he did not have a traditional degree. And we also heard about Faith's friend, on the other hand, who is a younger person, but who had tons of AP credits, right? Almost ready to go to college. But just because she chose not to, she ended up struggling to find a career pathway for herself. So this could be you, or this could be a story of someone you know. And for this reason, I'm going to ask you guys to think about and share examples of maybe other kinds of learners similar to whom we heard about, who may be at an unfair disadvantage just because they chose not to go to college or because they chose a traditional higher ed program. So feel free to discuss in chat, build upon each other's ideas. And while I wait for you guys to answer in chat, share your thoughts, I'm going to share an example of my own. I had a classmate of mine who was also in the same entrepreneurship program as me. And right after our junior year, she dropped out to focus on her fashion startup. A year later, she found out that it wasn't working for her, and she didn't also want to come back to college. But unfortunately, she was labeled as a dropout, and she really struggled to find jobs. But that's really unfair, right? Because this person, she attended college for 3 years, gained valuable skills, but just because we don't have a way to quickly validate skills, many people like her are struggling to find jobs that they really qualify for. And at this time, I'm looking at chat and we're having lots of responses. So let's see. Michelle here is sharing that her cousin chose to go into the workforce right out of high school, but his career stalled in the last couple of years, and he doesn't feel comfortable going back because of time and financial constraints. Definitely, that's a theme that we're seeing, which is recurring. Andrew here shared about people enlisted in the military right after high school, definitely. Working learners, thanks for sharing, Lucas. People not living near a university. So I think, Roger, you're trying to say commuting might be a problem, relocating might be a problem, definitely. Wow, lots of you answering, you guys. Really, really appreciate the energy, especially at this time of the day. Keep it going. While my fellow presenters would like, if you'd like to answer in chat, please feel free to do so. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next question. So now you guys, now that you've listed many different kinds of examples, including international immigrants, like I'm seeing right now, what challenges do you think these people face? Like, obviously, we heard about time, financial barriers, relocation as some, but what other challenges do you guys think? Connecting with students, definitely. If you're an older student coming back to college, connecting with people who are not your age might be a challenge. We're seeing financial troubles again, definitely. Needing more support, time management skills. Navigating the system, definitely. Understanding the college system, especially if you're a first-gen student like myself. Balancing work, school, and family. Isn't balancing all of our problems, definitely. Interacting with faculty. Again, financial struggles. We're seeing a pattern here. Okay, love, love, love the energy. Love all of your responses. Now, keep all of these things in mind as we go through our presentation. We're going to have more opportunities for discussion, and we'll come back to this and tie-ins.
So from hearing the story of Mukta and Faith, and now all of you, it's clear that traditional forms of credentialing like bachelor's degrees are not as effective or even accessible to everybody. And so what alternative credentials aim to do is find another pathway for these people to pursue education and show that they have skills that are worth sharing. So different forms of alternative credentialing are micro-credentials, which are different badges or certificates from taking online courses and earning credits. Stackable pathways, which are different sequences of credentials that are stacked on top of each other to show that you have an understanding of a specific skill set. Or competency-based education, which is basically like if you imagine your transcript where it has all of your courses and grades, but kind of like a resume. So it's recording your job and internship experience and translating that into credit as well, or showing for something more than just a resume. And so something very important to note when we're talking about alternative credentials, and something that's a common misconception, is people often assume that that alternative credentials aim to replace a bachelor's degree or aim to replace traditional credentials. And that's not the case at all. Instead, they're meant to supplement what exists so that we can enable a wider amount of people to access higher education or access credentials. So it's supplementing the market, and additionally, alternative credentials can also help for people who already have bachelor's degrees or already have other degrees, because they can show other non-technical skills like soft skills. And so the most common forms of alternative credentialing are different certificates that you can use to show competency or eligibility for specific jobs, such as Coursera, those offered through Coursera, edX, and Udacity.
Okay, so we are now going to explore paths and programs in a variety of organizations a little bit more through our breakout rooms. The purpose of these breakout rooms is to dive deeper into discussion and understanding of what program offerings are available. Now, you will be randomly selected to be put into breakout rooms, so we apologize if you do not end up with one that would have been your first choice. However, we will be discussing all of them when we reconvene as a larger group for a general discussion. I do want to say that we were just told as we were working through technology that if you're on a Chromebook device or if you're on an Android phone, you might not be going into a breakout room, which case you have a 15-minute break before we have our general session. We will have a general session come back afterwards in which we'll discuss everything that happened in our breakout rooms, as well as learn more from what you guys want to talk about after diving into these programs a little bit deeper. We're really excited to share our knowledge with you and discuss the potential innovation across all forms of education. Okay, so now that we're reconvening as our main group again, welcome back. We hope that you had an enjoyable breakout session and maybe learned something new or had an interesting discourse with your fellow campers here. We are briefly going to summarize what went out in each breakout room so that you can have a complete overview before we jump into our general discussion, which will be all of you campers providing more insights and giving us some feedback on what you think is going on with alternative credentialing.
All right, so for those of you that weren't in the stackable credentials breakout room, I'm just going to give a brief overview. Essentially, stackable credentials give individuals the ability to kind of come and go as they please. So kind of customizing it to whatever experience they're looking for, while validating learning along the way in a platform in a way that employers will recognize. Essentially, they're relevant because, like I said, they allow individuals to customize the learning experience while still earning skills, badges, certificates along the way that employers will recognize and they will be able to use on the job. These credentials stack up and go all the way from badges to certificates, all the way up to master's degrees. And they're a really great alternative in our college-oriented society. We talked about this a lot in my breakout room, but it kind of gives individuals the opportunity to learn skills through a modality that doesn't force them to commit to $120,000 in debt or 4 years of, the traditional living at a college and taking a certain degree path. Some of the major benefits include flexibility in coming and going, being able to articulate learned skills on a resume other than just kind of, a sentence that says that you completed your degree, because we all know that when you actually complete a degree, you learn a lot of other skills along the way that aren't really listed. And then more on demand for adult learners. And this kind of goes back to a lot of the stuff that was coming up in the chat earlier on when we talked about individuals who might need a more flex learning experience. Or now with COVID, I mentioned that unemployment has hit 20 million recently. And all of these people might be looking to upskill or reskill. And this is a very flexible opportunity for them to do that.
So in the Accelerated Learning Breakout Room, we talked about digital badges and boot camps. So for digital badging, first of all, you should all know what this is, because Learning Human is using Badger to facilitate digital badging and show your different skills you've learned from the camp. So if you don't know about that, check your emails. You can sign up and earn badges. But the point of badges is to demonstrate skills and competencies that can be transferable to your potential career. So it improves education and employment pathways by clearly communicating what you've learned, whether it be a soft skill or a more technical skill, to your employer, so that you have a quantified ways of saying, I'm good at teamwork because I've done these things that demonstrate my abilities to be a good team or be a good team member. And so a couple of good examples of digital badging programs. We talked about Georgetown University's Catalyst Badge in the breakout room, but a couple other examples are the University of Maryland's BEST program, Badger, which is used by Learning Human, and Credly. And if you want to check these out, we're going to be sending out information after the presentation. So you should definitely look at these if you're interested in digital badging. And the other thing we talked about was boot camps. So boot camps are really accelerated, basically job training programs that prioritize practice and application over theory. So if you think about what a bachelor's degree gives you, it gives you a very generalized knowledge of a skill set. So for example, mechanical engineering, which I'm majoring in, is a very broad degree, and it opens up a lot of potentials for me, which is a pro, but also I'm going to have a lot of on-job training after I graduate that's going to be specific to the skill set that my employer wants. So boot camps are generally run as job pipelines into specific skill sets, and that's why they're able to be accelerated. They're also generally cheaper than traditional options, because if you think about comparing the cost of 4 years of college with all the tuition, fees, room and board, versus a boot camp for 12 to 24 weeks, it's clear to see who wins. And also, I missed this point, but they're generally more popular in the tech industry, but definitely there are areas we could expand this, and that's something to think about in our larger discussion. And then we talked about the University of Arizona's coding boot camp in our breakout session, but there are a couple other examples that I think are super cool that you might want to check out on your own time.
Okay, so our breakout session covered competency-based education, which is the idea that having prior experiences via your life or education, those experiences should be transferable or applied towards credits or some sort of course learning. So I believe that Jasmine previously phrased it as this idea that your life experiences and everything should count as things on your resume, just like your report card and your courses. And I think that that's a super important thing to highlight here, because your experiences that you have in life are something that you don't always get to highlight or harp on about exactly how they relate to your job or how it gives you a specific set of skills, but that set of skills can still be exceptionally valuable for you as you move forward. And it's something that needs to be taken into account as you apply for jobs or as you apply for different programs for higher education or for learning in general. It helps a lot of learners as they look to get upskilled or reskilled, or if they're wanting to go a different way in the workforce, because they have experiences that are transferable across a variety of platforms. One that we talked about in our breakout session and that's been mentioned in our chat for quite some time is the idea of veterans and their re-entrance into the workforce, and the fact that they oftentimes have skills that they've learned in their positions that aren't necessarily going to be given a credit via a course or anything, but are still something that should be counted towards credits because they're prior experiences that relate to what you'll be seeing in your course curriculum and in other program offerings. So within our session, we highlighted some examples that already have pre-existing programs that allow for competency-based education. And so those pre-existing courses include, just a second, slight technical difficulties.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
But those include Western Governors University and University of Wisconsin. So Western Governors University allows for 27 plus credits that are based usually on earlier education or life experiences to count towards their program finishing. And then additionally, University of Wisconsin allows for their learners to learn at their own pace and have previous experiences applied via assessments that the learners will take. Challenges are also something that we wanted to cover in our session because we acknowledge that while we're making all these alternative credentials sound absolutely amazing because we really do think they're the next wave of education, there's also some prohibitive factors, and that includes federal government validation. It includes finances from a federal aid model for students, because oftentimes you have to be a full-time enrolled student in order for things to work out in your favor for a variety of federal aid programs. And it's also a business model issue for universities because this isn't something that's widely done yet. So how do you make it competitive with a traditional degree? But I think it's just really interesting to see all of these act as kind of a next wave of education.
Okay, you guys, we have come quite a way since our first discussion about different kinds of learners and their problems. We definitely did discuss alternative credentials as a potential solution for those problems. And we all had wonderful discussions, both in our breakout rooms and as a general group. I'm really, really happy. But yeah, and definitely at this time of the day, we understand that you must all be tired. You might have all attended tons of sessions from morning, and still you guys have been participating like really crazy, super energy. We really, really appreciate it. On behalf of Office of Applied Innovation, thank you all for your super participation. But it's not time for goodbye yet, so please keep up your energy. We are now going to go into some amazing discussion points based off of whatever we've learned to the larger group. But before that, if your breakout room lead was mindful and assigned a volunteer, unlike myself who got super engaged in all of your conversations and forgot, please assign volunteers. Take this time to share whatever interesting points that you guys discussed. People from our breakout room, Accelerated Learning, if you'd like to volunteer now on the spot, we would really love that. I know we all had great discussions. So feel free to either put your thoughts in chat or unmute and speak about the great things that you all discussed in your breakout rooms.
So I just wanted to vouch for my breakout room because I also got so engaged in the conversation that I did not kind of, appoint anyone. But something interesting that came up that we kind of got cut off talking about, sorry guys, someone had a concern that we kind of started discussing and unpacking the idea of people being reluctant to accept alternative credentialing as an idea, not only employers, but kind of on the side of educators and people that think that this is something that, even though we know it's not going to replace bachelor's degrees, we were trying to brainstorm maybe ways to warm people up to the idea who might not be as in tune with it, or just thinking that it would kind of demotivate people from getting bachelor's degrees. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, that would be really appreciated.
That's a valid point, but I'm going to let you all discuss amongst each other.
Hi, can I speak? Okay. Raja Rao, as I look at all these different options, what comes to mind is that, especially the high-tech industry, things are changing so much, so they will look at these things. Like a degree may get you a foot in the door, but the tech industry, what they look at is the skills, and the high tech changes so fast that these smaller packets of learning help people update their skills, and that will be more valued in the high-tech industry, and we're going to see more and more of that in the future. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you for sharing, Raja.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So thinking about what Raja said, are there certain fields where we see this would fit better than others? I think sometimes I think of, if I go to the doctor, do I want to know they've got credentials or that they went through a 7-year residency program thing? And so, and how do we help? What we sometimes do in education is we stretch stuff like K-12 and everybody's on board. And sometimes at the university, but then when you graduate, business is looking at us like, I don't understand what these credentials are. So how do you help employers understand that?
Great question. And I know we have a lot of higher ed professionals in our audience today, so I'm going to let the professionals take on this. What do you guys think? Thanks for sharing, Robin. Like a lot of other people have shared, your voice was distorted in between. I'm assuming technical difficulties, but I did get some of the points that you did share. Definitely. Also, I can see Jasmine agreeing with you. As an engineering student, it's definitely important for her to get a degree. And I know you said you talked about accreditation and government recognizing these credentials for it to be valid and taken. And definitely, to Zaina's point, if you're going to a doctor, you want them to be someone who went through many years of education and who knows their stuff. So yeah, accreditation, I'm really sorry for my accent, but accreditation is definitely a key concern that has been brought up in breakout rooms and here. Good point to take note of and keep talking. While you guys are, thanks Christina, while you guys are continuing this discussion, I'm going to move on to more questions. Let's see, how can your home institutions be inspired by these alternative credentials? And how might you adapt and customize the existing options that we talked about?
One thing that comes to mind from our conversation with Faith and Bailey is that it can be tricky to try things like competency-based learning or prior learning assessment in a degree space. And maybe just as a proof of concept and to demonstrate its value, you first try it in your institution's non-degree space and then see how it can grow from there by proving the concept first in a less controversial space.
That's a great point, Michelle. Thank you for sharing. Caroline says in chat, there's also an intangible benefit to validating people's learning other than a degree. It makes them want to keep going with their education. Yes, yes, yes.
There's also, and this might, I've been cautious because I don't want to seem self-serving or anything, but there's also opportunities to look at what other institutions are doing and learn from how they're doing it. You know, part of the point of higher education broadly is to be able to advance where we are in science and learning and see like what our peers have done and what we can learn from that. And I can tell you that like I'm a learning analytics researcher at WGU, and we've been doing this for decades. And we are telling people how we're doing it and what degrees we can do it with. And, you know, this is an opportunity for us to share what we've been doing and what works so that other programs and schools can be doing it too. You know, there's so many more potential students than any one university can reach. And we've got to be able to learn from each other and work on this together and, you know, make it an option that's available across the board.
Thanks for sharing, Jenna. Definitely we agree, which is why in our question we are asking you guys to get inspired by other universities. And we ourselves, we shared programs from other universities, right? Maryland, University of Arizona, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important for us to learn from each other and share what we have and also learn from them. Great points. Maybe quickly, if we can discuss the last question. So we did talk about learning from others, but what is completely missing from these existing options, and what are some new or additional components that can be added to these to make them better serving to all kinds of learners?
There's something in the chat I wanted to bring up that came up a couple times. I think Eric just said, and Lucas said earlier, I know a bunch of people brought it up, that a lot of these alternative credentialing methods must work backwards from the employers, which I completely agree with, to kind of bridge some of that uncertainty and also ensure that whatever students are learning in the classroom can actually be applied, and that's the skills that employers are looking for. So I think kind of extending that conversation from higher education institutions to employers as well is very interesting.
I'm looking at chat here. Let's see. Raja again is sharing alternative credentials can get employment, help with employability, whereas degree can help with advancement when competition is higher. I can see why he says that, because in our present system, a degree is still valued more, and definitely if you want to get ahead when there's high competition, that definitely gives you a better edge. But still, going back to our question, guys, what do you think is missing from what we have? Let's see, flexibility to combine credential from multiple orgs. Yes, I'm really sorry, I forgot who brought this up, but one university cannot serve all students, so definitely being able to take multiple courses and programs from different universities and bringing that together, that's definitely a great point. So thank you for sharing, Eric. Masha here says helping learners understand their options and value that each presents. Definitely the how and the why, right? Especially young students like us, going back to Faith's example about her friend at 17, right? We're expected to decide, what do you do with your entire life? What do you go to college for? And definitely the why and the how and the connecting pieces are a big gap. And I can see how that's a major challenge. And while I'm enjoying this and reading all of your points, we definitely want to make sure we get through the rest of the presentation and let you guys end this camp. And so, yeah, let's move on.
Okay, so as we begin to wrap up this campfire discussion, as Pooja mentioned, it's important to also look towards the future and consider the impacts of what we've discussed in this session. I think that's something that we were definitely getting at in our chat and with the discussion that you were all bringing to the table. Some lingering questions that we've addressed and that we've considered already, but that I want to readdress, is this idea of how do you design alternative credentials to be accredited across platforms and programs? And I think that's a super important point that Eric brought up, is this idea of flexibility and being able to jump from a different university to another university, especially if you're moving or you're looking for a specialization and it's only offered at one university. It's important that what you have can be carried across and that it's something that's transferable, not just onto your resume or LinkedIn, but also to other universities and other programs. Another lingering question that we might have is, how can we merge these credentials, certificates, and badges with our full-scale degree programs so that they benefit learners and the university alike? And I think that that's important because we want learners and universities to have a long-term bond that might include the learner going through multiple different programs as they find degrees and certificates that align with what their end mission is and what they want to do with their life as they take on a lifelong journey of learning. Obviously, I nor the team have the answers to these questions tonight, or we wouldn't be here. We'd be off changing the world and doing so much more. But we are so happy to be sitting and discussing these with you because we think that it's something that's really important and what could impact the future of education. I also want to highlight that there are so many benefits that programs like this can have, and I think that that's something that our chat and our breakout sessions have definitely agreed upon, is that while there are difficulties in scaling something like this, there are also large benefits to learners and the university alike. And so the idea is that these programs are oftentimes more flexible, which allows for completion at a variety of different times in your life. They're more cost effective for students who maybe can't take out loans or have other priorities going on and where they want to learn, but they aren't able to prioritize the degree right now. I also think it really aligns with a vision of the future with the labor force reskilling and upskilling and changing, which is something that we will see post-COVID-19. And I think that that's also been a common theme in our chat and in the discussions that we've had in breakout rooms is with COVID-19, how does that affect learning? And I think that this is something that could offer itself as a potential solution. Moreover, they lead to increased inclusivity from non-traditional learners who might not want to pursue a traditional college path, who may not have the opportunity to pursue a traditional college path. And it's important that we embrace learners at any stage in their journey. And lastly, I think that's important to reiterate and iterate this idea because it helps us assist our community and it helps the university become a larger part of the community as we provide different learning opportunities. As students, we've obviously researched and discussed this topic very extensively for this presentation. And we believe that these alternative credentials that we've highlighted are the next wave of education. And it's something that we are so happy we've gotten to share with you because we're super passionate about it. And we've loved the feedback that we've already been able to receive from all of you throughout this discussion.
Alrighty, so before we leave you guys today, we wanted to leave you with some next steps. So we encourage you all to recognize and overcome these possible barriers that we've talked about. And we also want to remind you that alternative credentialing is meant to extend higher ed to an underserved population, not replace traditional degree programs. So keep that in mind as you consider and reflect on what we talked about today. And we also urge you to apply what you learned today to your position at your home institution. How could you share this with your colleagues and even change some of the practices within your office to kind of account for some of these concepts that we talked about. And we also ask you to join us in informing yourself and others more about alternative credentialing and all of its benefits. If you are wanting to receive some more information, some extra resources, news articles, and notes from our presentation today, we are going to link a Google form where you can leave your contact info and we will send that to you right away. And then on behalf of the Office of Applied Innovation at ASU, we thank you guys so much for joining us today. It was so much fun to meet you guys and be able to interact even virtually via Zoom. It was amazing. And if you do want any extra information, feel free to check out that Google form, but also our office email is appliedinnovation@asu.edu.